What's up YouTube, Capital G here, got some very bizarre scrap action for you guys to check out. I am really hoping that Konami gives us a good amount of the Link Frames pack cards, the Link Frames pack 2 I'm talking about, in not only Savage Strike but obviously Dark Neostorm as well. I really want Scrap Wyvern and Psyframe Lamba. Those are the cards that I find the most interesting out of the Link Frames pack 2 because, you know, a lot of these scrap cards, because scraps are from the 5Ds era, they're not hard ones per turns. Cards like Scrap Golem, you can just use it over and over and over again, and this is a very weird card, Scrap Searcher, right? So here's what this card does. It can special summon itself from the graveyard when a scrap monster you control except another copy of itself is destroyed. Not a hard once per turn, and you can activate it 50 times in a turn. Now the thing about it is it does blow up all your monsters on the field that are not scrap monsters, so that does kind of suck, but you can do some actual nutty things with this card. Man, it's a good thing that Card Safe Return is banned. That card's never coming back, by the way. Card Destruction into Pot of Desires to get his deck rolling with the Orthros, and now he can activate the first copy of that Scrap Searcher, and you just try to keep a mental count of how many times that card's going to activate. Gonna go for Crystron Needle Fiber, goes for Scrap Wyvern, probably going to activate the effect to blow up another monster. That's going to trigger the Scrap Searcher a second and third time in this turn. He's also going to be able to summon off of the Wyvern as well. So you can see right here, he's just kind of building up a lot of resources, still has not used the Soul Charge, even goes in for Princess Sprite. Unfortunately, he gets a field spell, which would have been better if he got a Solemn or an Impermanence or something like that. That would have been kind of cool. Goes for Saryuja Skull Dread just to try to fix his hand a little bit, maybe putting some of those field spells back into the deck. Obviously, you're gonna activate the Soul Charge at one point. I think we're on 3 when it comes to the Scrap Searcher, right? Goes for Naturia Landoys. When was the last time? Oh, there's the 4th effect of the Scrap Searcher, by the way. And then Naturia Beast. I think the Beast obviously makes sense, but I ain't seen a Landoys in years. His opponent does make a little bit of a misstep here. He sees the Naturia Beast on field, and he does activate the field spell. I feel like unless he had Ghost Ogre, there's really just no reason to do that. I think it was just a misplay, especially considering Orcust can link climb so easily. It's like, come on, man. You got to know that you can get to Orchestrion, and then obviously you can just out your opponent's border. Maybe not out all of it. Honestly, I'm not even sure that Orchestrion would have been able to out all of this. I mean, the dude has like 6 monsters on the board. He's going to be able to pretty much get all of them negated and all of them 0 attack, which is cool. The problem is they can still be used as link materials or, you know, other things like that. So that's going to be a problem. He goes straight for the Scrap Twin Dragon, get a couple of cards off the field. I think that is what, 5 and 6. Are we on 5 and 6 for the Scrap Searcher right now? It's somewhere close to that. So he's going to activate them both. He does have to blow up his Naturia monsters, but not even a problem because he's still getting big monsters on board, and he revives his Scrap Twin Dragon. Okay, so that was like 6, and that was like 6, right? So I think that's 7 and 8 maybe. Okay, so I guess we're just on 7. I can't count. Anyways, looks like he is able to close out the duel. I feel like there has to be some way to use Scrap Searcher. The fact that he summoned it about 7 times in just a couple of turns, there has to be some way to exploit that. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Again, it is only a level 1. It's not a tuner. If it was a tuner, oh my goodness, it'd be like ridiculous, but there has to be some way to exploit that. Somebody's going to figure that out. Anyways, let's go ahead and pause for one quick second and look at the deck list. Okay, so this is what the deck looks like on paper. Obviously, it is pretty damn weird. I guess it's kind of a scrap deck where you summon a bunch from the graveyard as he's running 3 copies of the Scrap Searcher. It's interesting because you do, I guess because we saw in the duel, you want to make some of these stun monsters like Naturia Beast and Don Dragster, Naturia Landoys, but at the same time, if your Scrap Searcher is summoned, it's going to nuke those monsters as well because the entire deck for the most part is earth, and you know, obviously he leans towards his earth monsters in the extra deck with the Naturias. I do feel like he could probably bump up the Gozen match to like 3. I wonder how skill drain kind of works in this deck. I mean, I get it if you get maybe like a Scrap Twin Dragon on the field, it's gonna be like really difficult for your opponent to be able to out that, but I don't know, man. It seems like if you get it too early before you have this guy, then, you know, there could be a conflict of interest there to where your opponent might actually be able to to, you know, get over your other monsters, because the Link monsters aren't very big except Saryuja Skull Dread. We also see Scrap Lube, not a card that's used very often in scraps. It's interesting. It's kind of like a Monster Reborn. The monster does come back with its effects negated when it's removed from the field. I believe that you actually destroy the Scrap Lube, so it's an interesting card. You don't get to activate you don't get a battle phase during the turn that you activate Scrap Lube, so I'm not really sure if that's worth it, especially going second. Although, you know, scraps do have so much removal, not just with the, you know, OG Scrap Dragon, but obviously with Scrap Wyvern. I think that people will now realize that Scrap Wyvern is always going to get that pop effect, much like Scrap Dragon. I mean, yeah, you could probably pop a bunch of cards on your opponent's side of the field, but is it worth it not being able to get a battle phase and potentially just gaming them? But, you know, this is an interesting build of scraps. We'll see if anything comes, you know, of it, and I think that Scrap Searcher could be a card to be exploited, just not exactly sure how to do it yet.